Amazing. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with Jennie Yang of Chief Mama Officer. And this is our last LinkedIn Live of the year on developing presence at home and at work. And I think if you're like me, this is an especially good time to think about being present at home and how to wrap up things at the end of the year so you can really get time to relax. Um, I am one of the founders of Sundays. If you're not familiar with Sundays, it is an executive assistant service for working parents. We help parents get quality time back at home and focus time back at work by partnering them with an executive assistant on our team. And we're going to talk a lot more about Jennie and Chief Mama Officer. We met through LinkedIn, and I'm super excited to be a really early member of Chief Mama Officer, which is an amazing community of women who are in executive roles and also parents. Uh, and yeah, I'm super excited to have you here today, Jennie.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me, Ashley. Excited to drop in.
Awesome. Okay, if you haven't met Jennie yet, I will give you guys a little bio of her and then jump into a bunch of questions that I have. And hopefully, we can all step away with some really good learnings about being present over the next few weeks and other things that we can learn and incorporate over 2025. Uh, so, Jennie Yang is the founder of Chief Mama Officer, a community for founder and executive moms of young children who are expecting or who plan to have a family. As an executive coach, former tech executive, and mom of two little ones, Jennie is passionate about helping executive moms thrive. That's also a big reason why Sundays is around. So I'm super excited to connect with you more on that today. Um, Jennie started her coaching practice in 2017 after becoming a certified master practitioner of transformational neurolinguistic programming. You're probably better at saying that sentence than me, Jennie. Also known as NLP, she blends NLP with mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and conscious leadership in her coaching approach. She's spent her entire career as a strategic operator for tech startups, scale ups, and Fortune 500 companies. Most notably, she led HR and customer success for 15Five and created business operations at Tiger Connect. She also started her career as a management consultant at the advisory board in Deloitte, which I'm sure we have a few people from that type of business coming into this call today. So thank you so much, Jennie. I'm super excited to be here with you. I wanted to kick off by just asking, it's the middle of December. We're running into the holidays in the next couple weeks. How are you feeling this time of year?
Yes, it's right now. It sort of feels like the storm, honestly, with end of year planning. End of year, and just wrapping up end of year, and then 2025 planning, and of course the holidays. I think there is, especially with a family. I have two kids, a 4-year-old and a 7-month-old, and there's a lot of anticipation with the holidays, especially with the 4-year-old. And so, ensuring that we have our plans in place. And so, yeah, it's definitely chaotic and stormy. and I'm looking forward to, I intentionally decided to not take calls for the next 2 weeks, given that school is out. And so, there's some gaps in childcare. And so just taking the time to be present with my family, making the intentional decision to be, present with my family and myself, and to be able to take the time I need to replenish myself.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a smart decision. And I'm hoping to also do the same over the next couple of weeks. I know our team has been helping with a lot of things, getting ready for the holidays this week. And then I think everyone we've talked to is kind of hoping to dive into relaxing and being present soon. Well, I would love to hear. I know we connected first over Chief Mama Officer, but you have a long history before Chief Mama Officer. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your background before starting it and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I like to say I got to where I am today in the present moment through curiosity and listening to my heart. A lot of my decisions around my career have been following my heart and interest around, oh, let's try on this role. That sounds interesting. Or, this feels like it might be the next right move. And so, I have a very non-linear career path. You mentioned, thankfully in my intro, I appreciate the kind intro, with with my background, I started out with a small stint in management consulting, but really it's been, 15 years in the tech space. And really here, I've followed my heart and my nose in terms of the role that I would like. So going from, customer success roles, consulting roles, all and over to HR and people. And so I've served as a leader at 3 tech startups, and as you mentioned, most recently an HR exec at a HR tech startup. And a fun fact that people might not know about me is that I actually took a 10-month sabbatical between the second startup and the third startup. And that was a time when I felt really burnt out, honestly. And I was like, I'm not sure that, healthcare tech is the right industry for me. And so it led me in this journey of discovery, which is when I decided to go for my coaching certification in neurolinguistic programming and NLP. And that's when I started my coaching practice, was during that sabbatical. And so the coaching practice has been a side hustle on the side of my previous startup. And so it's been around for 7 years, and recently just decided to make the transition to do it full time. And so that's really where I've landed to today of creating Chief Mom Officer as a space and community for executive moms of young children and moms to be, and being able to coach at scale. And so I didn't intentionally start it for it to be a group coaching membership community, but it has sort of ended up that way. It's really new. It just launched at the beginning of November, and it's sort of turned into group coaching, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I love that. And just, I know I said it in your intro, but what is Chief Mama Officer today, and who should be interested in joining it?
Yeah. Chief Mom Officer is a membership community for executive moms of young kids, so kids under 6 and moms to be, and any female executive who wants to start a family. And really, the membership is we have a community platform that our members can interact within. We also have 2 events a month. One on First Fridays called Curated Connection, which is really in-depth networking and being able to connect with one another as Chief Mom Officers around what's at top of mind and heart. And then a learning workshop, which I just facilitated earlier today on third Wednesdays, around a topic that is very prevalent amongst the Chief Mom Officers. So an example would be last month we did a topic on creating space for yourself. I think we hear a lot of the times with working parents, and particularly executive moms, is like their needs are not met. They don't even know what their needs are.
Yeah.
Really, they're prioritizing work and their kids. And so being able to, create space for ourselves and set boundaries with ease, be able to prioritize and delegate. And so then today, our workshop was centered around visioning 2025. What does that look like? And what do we need to leave behind in 2024 to allow us to get to our 2025 vision? So there's an element of both personal and professional development through these 2 live events. And then there's a one-on-one coaching session with me. So there's a lot of peer coaching, executive coaching from me. And then the last benefit of the community is there is this village that I'm building out, and Sundays is part of this village, where it's an ecosystem of preferred partners across different dimensions of career and motherhood. So, different vendors that are specifically focused on the mama, different, preferred partners that are focused on the family and household management, like Sundays. And then there's also various other, workplace tools that might be relevant for working moms. So yeah, excited to launch that at the beginning of the new year.
Yeah, I love that so much, Jenny. And I think that the workshops that you're facilitating sound so valuable. We talk to a ton of parents who come to us and they're like, I have all these really big goals coming up. And they are just like they are focused so much on that they're not necessarily taking the time to prioritize themselves and understand, like, what does it need? What is that actually going to take from me? What do I need to give myself in order to fuel those goals too? So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super interested in your background as a people leader, especially at 15.5, which I know is helping a bunch of companies to be thoughtful about how they work with their people. What were some of your biggest learnings in your role there?
Yeah. So I had the privilege of being our HR exec at a HR tech company. So 15.5 is a performance management platform for organizations, and also highly focused on supporting people leaders to be strategic and be able to dive into different HR outcomes like employee retention and engagement and performance, to drive business outcomes. And like the reason why it was a privilege was because I got to be the customer of our own platform and leverage it in a way that allowed us to improve retention, engagement, and performance at the organization. But really, my biggest insights and learnings as a people leader were that people thrive off of human connection and recognition. It was really challenging, we had a hybrid work environment before and had two offices, one in San Francisco and one in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we would have annual retreats and department retreats. And then when COVID happened, it was just really hard for people to go 100% remote when they were used to that in-person human connection. And so as the pandemic fizzled out, there were still opportunities to gather in person, but that connection was so important face to face, and also just feeling seen and heard. Having this sense of psychological safety to make mistakes is pertinent in order to unlock your team members' potential and the performance of team members. And then last but most importantly, leadership makes a huge difference. Something that I have learned as an executive coach and what I have observed is that the company is a fractal representation of the CEO's values, behaviors, and mindsets. And so, in other words, the company is a mirror reflection of the CEO. And I truly believe it. And, which is why there have been articles around the importance of executive coaching to have, this advisor and, objective perspective to help a CEO or, an executive on their own journey of their personal and professional development. So I would say that was a huge learning for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Do you feel like the needs of people and employees have changed significantly over the last few years, maybe with COVID and remote work or not remote work? How have you seen that evolve?
Yeah, definitely. They have shifted. And so I would say the biggest theme that I saw across the past couple of years, given the market conditions and increasing layoffs, is that employees want safety and security. It really showed up in one of our internal surveys to our employees around, if they were to stack rank our total rewards, what do they value the most? And I actually was anticipating that growth and development was going to be towards the top, but it was actually compensation and benefits.
Hmm.
And like 401k and and being able to have this safety and security and being able to provide for themselves and their family. And then, growth and development still, comes in the top 10. But definitely when you think about the makeup of the generational demographic of the workforce, right? Increasingly millennial and Gen Z. And so, growth is extremely important for both millennials and Gen Z, and being able to be recognized with growth opportunities and expanding their role. And therefore, being able to have a path to promotion, and then compensation that reflects that. And I think
Yeah,
another expectation too is, having a manager who acts as a coach who can help, effectively be a career coach for the team member.
yeah, I love that. From all your learnings there, what led you to focus on starting chief mama officer? Was that like I mean, besides being part of that demographic, was there anything in particular that made you really interested in supporting women in these executive roles?
Yeah, well, I'll start with in 2021, I had just come back from my first maternity leave with my first baby. And um, I remember a month in, so I was a director of that time. I was running talent development, and my predecessor for VP role had left the organization, and so there was sort of a gap in leadership. We had a chief people officer, and so I, you know, stood up for myself and I advocated myself of like, hey, chief people officer, it seems like we need a bit more operational structure and support to run the people team, and advocated to fill in the VP's role. And I think that was one of the first well, actually, it's not the first time, but it was like I had to advocate, for myself when I saw the opportunity, right, and the business need. The advice that I give people is often, you know, um, start with the business need, right, and then like raise your hand of like, oh, I can help solve that business need. And so, in any case, I bring this up because it was my first executive role that I stepped into with a 4-month old, and I actually had returned back from work, returned to work earlier than anticipated. I had 16 weeks, but I came back after 11 weeks because I was so excited about where the business was going and, contributing. And then, a month later, get promoted to VP, and then just like am in this whirlwind of like stepping up and taking on more responsibility. We had an acquisition, and so I was running the acquisition, so it was a lot. And then also being a parent, a mom for the first time, and the demands of like early motherhood and infants. And so I just felt really alone. There were no other leaders that were in that role, and so I felt really alone. And then fast forward to a few months ago when um, I was planning to go back to work to 15.5 in my HR role, and I just realized how burnt out I was in running HR. And I think it was, like there was a strengths misalignment, where, the reason why I got to HR in the first place was because I loved helping people grow and develop, like development and coaching is my bread and butter. And it became less of that and more, operational projects. And so in any case, yeah, I made a choice to not return. And I personally found it controversial, and I was like, oh, like now I sort of understand why people don't go back to work after a leave, because I felt burnt out from the role that I was going back to, and like having my second child this time around, I realized how much I needed and wanted flexibility. And being able to have that flexibility has been key to be around for my 7-month old, and to be able to meet her needs. And so in any case, that long story short, I was in search of community, and I did not find a community out there that was the intersection of executive moms with young kids. There are a lot of working mom communities out there. The one community that really inspired me actually was VC backed moms, not VC backed. So I was like, okay, well, if I were to surround myself with women who are ambitious and also moms of little ones, like why don't I just create it myself? And so basically I created it out of, my own personal desire and need to surround myself with like-hearted and like-minded people.
Yeah, I think that's so amazing. And I was talking, we did a LinkedIn Live with Kalina Quibble last week, and she is bringing together a bunch of resources around different career choices that people make. But one of the big things that she was pointing out was just like, we have such a lack of access to other people's stories and the decisions and ways that people are thinking about their career choices. And I think what you're doing with Chief Mom Officer, bringing together a bunch of ambitious women to find community and know that other people are in the same shoes as them is so, so valuable. And yeah, one of my goals at Sundays is to help more women get into and stay in leadership roles, because I think overall that's the only way we can change like how we think about balancing family and work. And so this is such an enormous part of it, and I'm so excited to see it come to life.
Yeah, that's awesome, Ashley. I appreciate you bringing that up because we have similar missions, which is why I think we were so aligned when we first met, was that we um, at Chief Mama Officer, it's really to continue to invest in the pipeline of talented women who happen to be moms. And I think, you know, the time when a woman becomes a mother is such a critical and sacred time and vulnerable time as well, because like your body is needed by your child. And so there's literally, you know, needs across the board. But, you know, because we've been so ambitious and like basically programmed, like, our career is the first thing, is the first priority, right? There's just like a lot of cognitive dissonance around like where we are needed and what we personally want for our own selves. And so that being said, I definitely want, like, for the executive moms who want to stay in their roles and, continue to, rise up the ranks and, be founders of their own businesses, right? I want to see more executive moms having successful exits of their business, and so that they have, opportunities on more boards. I would like to see more representation on board of directors. And so, yeah, I am passionate about it, just like you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I told you before, but I'm expecting in March my first. And so going through a lot of this emotional change of like, I've been so focused and I've been so focused on Sundays the last 2 years or so. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to have time for all the things that I have been doing? And yeah, just like really prioritizing a lot. And so yeah, it's super amazing to hear how you have helped people through that. Maybe to switch gears a little bit, the topic of what we want to talk about today was developing presence. And I think that's one of the things that feels hardest when you have so much going on, is to be truly present in kind of either place that you're in. What made you realize that presence is important and something that you wanted to focus on?
Yeah, definitely. There's two critical moments that were pivotal where I hit rock bottom a couple of times. And honestly, they were, self-induced from this lens of, being extremely high achieving at all costs and perfectionist at all costs, and, learned a lot from it. And there were two moments in my career where it just was not great. It was, pretty dark, and, and actually it was a diagnosis of clinical depression in 2014 that made me realize, like, oh, I need to choose a different way. But it wasn't until 2016, when I took that 10-month sabbatical, that I started this significant healing process. And as part of that healing process, I practiced yoga a lot. I was probably going to 5 yoga classes a week in 2016 when I started on this healing path. And yoga was an incredible practice to drop into my body, because so much of humans is like, we have this privilege of having this cognitive brain and being able to think, and at the same time, we're overthinkers. It's this constant whirl of thoughts, right? And a lot of the times I just found my thoughts just running around in circles. And so yoga was this practice that allowed my mind to just relax and drop more into my body. And still, yes, thoughts would arise in yoga practice. And that's the practice of noting, of mindfulness, of, hey, like, oh, I'm noticing I'm having thoughts. Okay, like bringing my awareness back to my body and back to my breath. And so presence was critical in allowing me to recover, to heal depression, really, and to recover from burnout, and to have a better relationship with myself, and therefore the world, and most importantly, like people closest to me, like the relationships with other humans. And so, I did a lot of research in presence. I actually became a trainer on emotional intelligence. And, all of it is grounded in neuroscience and psychology and physiology. I think we don't realize, but like being present and aware and mindful, it actually helps us rewire our brains because it can it can strengthen the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for focus and decision making and self-regulation. And it also reduces activity in the amygdala, which is associated with stress and emotional reactivity. And so it helps us, across the spectrum of, being able to regulate our emotions, and also, honestly, I think it helps improve the quality of our relationships with others. I have two people in my life, my husband and one of my close friends, who always call me out when I'm thinking about something when they're talking to me.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate them for doing it, because they'll be like, Jennie, you're not paying attention. I'm like, okay, like, thanks for calling me out. Like, yes,
Yeah.
true. Like, I'm thinking about something else.
Sometimes my husband will just say like a random, like he'll just like say like a sentence just to see if he's like, I knew you weren't paying attention. Like this was like a test question that like didn't make any sense, and like see how long it takes me to catch it. I'm like, oh, that's actually really bad. Like if I'm going to be in a conversation with you, I want to be in a conversation with you. I don't want to be like thinking about all of these other things.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And oftentimes when I notice like I haven't caught everything, my husband will be saying something and I'll have to like catch myself and be like, actually, can you repeat that again, please? And it's like I wasn't fully here and I want to be fully here.
Yeah. Is that something that you work on, or like just kind of being aware of your own presence, and like when you're fully engaged versus like maybe you're trying to do too many things at once or something like that?
Yes, that's the whole practice of meditation and mindfulness, because I think meditation has this reputation of like, oh, your brain is going to be clear of thoughts. And it's actually not true, because our brain is wired to have thoughts. And so it's actually the practice of noticing, oh, okay, my brain is thinking these thoughts, right? And not necessarily attaching ourselves to those thoughts. I think a lot of the challenges with anxiety is that we believe we are our thoughts. And then meditation and mindfulness sort of creates that space and objectivity, objective relationship with those thoughts, that the thoughts are sort of their own thing. They're not necessarily, defining who we are.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you work with people on getting started with mindfulness and presence, what are your favorite ways to kind of have people experiment with it, or get to know what it might feel like?
Yeah, so something that I started doing during the pandemic was, well, prior to the pandemic, I was doing more like silent meditation. And then during the pandemic, I was introduced to this healing modality called sound healing, where someone might be playing these crystal bowls, or you might hear like some chimes, and I have adopted that more as my meditation and mindfulness practice of listening to literally like a 5-minute guided sound healing, and I found that it's just helped me like tune back into a state of groundedness. And so, I think the sound healing really works. And then also just taking a deep breath. Something that I do in my guided meditations for folks is just allowing us to take a deep breath together. And maybe I'll just invite us all to take a deep breath together. And so you just inhale and then exhale. And just notice how your body feels after that. It's a practice that sometimes I would open up meetings and one-on-ones with, of, hey, let's just ground ourselves and get into the present moment. And so let's just take a deep breath together. And a lot of the times I like to invite them to take the deepest breath you've taken all day. And I think we just don't notice or value our breath as a tool, as a simple tool that's there for us every
Mm-hmm.
day, keeping us alive, right? As something that can just help us reset.
I love that. I went to a group coaching group for a while where they would start by saying, like, let's start with your taking the 3 deepest breaths you've taken all day. And it was so impactful because it just really draws you into the moment. And I think in your body, you actually feel yourself like relax just from taking deep breaths. So that's such a wonderful, powerful tool.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you see when, especially when you're working with really busy parents, do you see like similar things that might be getting in the way of them overall feeling present that are kind of repeated? And if you have any suggestions on how to work on those, that would be amazing too.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I have definitely have lived experience with that. So, um, yeah, it's just yeah, the word that keeps coming up for me is chaos, right? There's, especially when you have little ones and, toddlers and start moving around and walking and having, their opinions of their own. It's just there's a lot of noise. And of course, it's like it's a full-time job of being a parent and a full-time and likely you have a full-time job as well, like if as a working parent. And so you've got these two full-time jobs. And so yeah, I think the breath is really great. And actually something that I just recently experimented with was kid yoga. And so I've been a member of Alo Yoga for the past 4 years, and that's where I started the sound healing meditations. And they have kid yoga where it's a 5 minute yoga practice, and I popped it on with my 4 year old the other weekend, and being able to bake in these moments with your kids and bring them along for the ride. And it's like he had the attention span for a 5 minute yoga practice together, and it was great. And so we did actually 3 5 minute practices, and I let him pick them. And so being able to have an activity that nourishes you as well, that they can join in. And I think the other practice that has really gotten me through tough times and the chaos of working parenthood is gratitude. Taking a moment to reflect on what you're grateful for. And I used to be a lot better about this practice, but I would have a gratitude journal where I would write the top 3 things that I felt grateful for that day. Something that I also like to do with my community, if we ever have folks over for dinner, and I experimented this with kids on Thanksgiving, where we hosted Friendsgiving. I had a table set up for all the adults. There were about 10 adults, and I had these questions that were on the table. And what are you grateful for was the first question. And there were a couple other questions, but we had a kids table and we had all the toys to keep them entertained. And by the time they were 4, they were able to keep themselves entertained. But like we in community talked about what we felt grateful for. And it was just lovely because I felt like I hadn't had that in years, especially with the kids around. And so I think, being able to reflect for yourself individually what you feel grateful for, but talking about it in community as well is really powerful.
Yeah, I love that so much. I try to do that on a weekly basis, but I think doing it every day is like even better. And yeah, that's really powerful as well. Do you see people having, if they're trying to be present, do you think the same, like, are there the same tools that work best at work and at home, or do you ever think about them separately?
Honestly, it's something that's integrated for me across work and home. Again, the breath, going back to the breath. I think it's also as a leader, it's setting the example that it is okay to take a pause and take a breath together. In so many, especially at hyper growth startups or environments that require a lot of hustle. I think it's really important just to demonstrate, like, yeah, it's okay for us to take this moment to breathe, like,
Yeah.
and yeah, and to rest. I think what's really important is across both spectrums of home and work is baking in rest, and role modeling that as a leader of, okay, like I'm going to honor the week off that I'm taking and delete Slack off of my phone. Hey.
I that's the first time that's ever happened to me. So,
Sorry, y'all.
That's good. I mean, you said it happened to me at the moment that you said delete Slack off your phone, and I was like, maybe this is a sign. I'm just supposed to
Oh my
be
gosh,
done with
that's hilarious. Oh,
everything for
oh my
the
goodness.
next
Yeah,
couple of weeks.
that's so funny. Apologies, y'all. I'm based in Missoula, Montana, and today we have a high wind warning, and so it must be that the Wi-Fi is cutting in and out. So I don't see high winds right now, though. So
No problem at all. But no, that totally makes sense. I think seeing leaders demonstrate actually being off is so powerful. That is one thing that I like truly believe in actual rest. I'm like, I need to be totally disconnected. And I know when I do that, my brain is so much better when I come back. But it's really hard. And I've seen a lot of leaders that I've worked with where it's like, they're on vacation, but they're like responding to Slack messages all day. And it's like, well, you're not really helping because you're not actually working and you're not doing anything for yourself either. So
Mhm.
um, I think that it's valuable, and also nothing will break in the short time in between. Take a couple of days off.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, something that's coming up for me too is that sometimes what I've seen or heard with parents with little ones, that sometimes vacations don't actually feel like vacations when they have the little ones. And I feel that's something that my family and I have done in our past family vacations with the little one has been, again, like I mentioned, like baking in the activities that are nourishing for both parent and child. And so I was telling Ashley that my family were taking a vacation in Hawaii in January, and my husband and I love swimming in the ocean. Okay, great. Then we're going to be spending a ton of time at the beach with the kids, and and that will be restorative for us, as being able to soak in the ocean and have the kids play in the sand. And so yeah, I think a lot of the times, like, parents will come back from vacations being like, oh gosh, I need another vacation from that. But again, it's like this practice of like, what is restorative for you, and taking the family along for the ride.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also saw someone who had a single parent of a couple of kids, who was suggesting, like, over maybe extended periods where you have a lot of family time, making sure you are defining like concrete time that you're going to get time on your own to go on a walk or something like that, that can give you the energy to be as engaged as you want to be during other times too.
That's right. Yes.
Um, Amazing. Well, this is so powerful, and I literally wrote down sound healing on my notebook because I did sound. I've been to a couple of sound healing events before, and one, I'm in San Francisco. I went to one at Grace Cathedral once, which was really really cool because it was like this very grand place. But um, it's been, for me, it's been like a much easier way to engage in the idea of meditation than just kind of being like, okay, I'm going to meditate now. So I feel like that's one takeaway that I have from this conversation already, Jenny. And I think you gave a bunch of other great tips. Any last things that you think would be helpful for people to take away in terms of like how they could think about presence for the next couple of weeks or as they're developing 2025 plans?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I love you sharing that reflection. And oh gosh, Grace Cathedral is such a beautiful spot for sound healing. I think I did that as well, like maybe 5 years or 6 years ago. And, I think going back to the cultivating and building the muscle of presence, because it really is a muscle, because I think we're programmed to multitask and do a lot of things at once. It's like not normal to actually be present. And so it's like something that we have to practice intentionally. And a lot of it is learning to be able to focus on one thing at a time. And so going back to the sound healing, I think that's such a powerful way to focus on the sound, right? And it's something that you can bring your attention to, right? And so, again, just presence equals like focusing and bringing awareness to one thing. And so that's where, again, breath, the sound can be things that you can anchor on. It can be listening to the rain outside or the birds chirping. It's just something to get you back into, rather than a thinking state, right, to more of being present in your body. And I think, for the holidays in particular, there might be some family triggers that come up. Like for folks spending time with family, there's a lot baked in there, right? And so it's this is where the emotional intelligence piece comes in of, okay, I'm bringing awareness that, okay, I know that I anticipate mom to say this thing, and then I'm going to get triggered and I'm going to react, right? So one, having the self-awareness, and then two, making a choice in that moment, like realizing that, okay, I have a choice in this reactivity to take a step away, right? To give myself some space away from the other person, take a step outside, right? And then be able to allow the reaction and the emotion to express itself, like through exhales outside or whatever it is that you do to be able to express the emotion fully, and then come back when you're in a bit more of a rational state, right? To
Mm-hmm.
have a more a less charged conversation, with understanding the being able to articulate, like, hey mom, like when you said this, it made me feel this, and I own that feeling and I need to do work on it, and going forward, like, I would like to make a request for you to ask this in a different way. And so
Yeah.
that's where emotional regulation, bringing awareness to the emotion and the reaction, is so important, for like the well-being of the family and yourself. And so yeah, I just encourage you to take breathers across the next few weeks, take a step outside, especially for those of us in cooler climates, and you can just get a breath of cold fresh air. It'll definitely be a reset.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, where can we find out more about you and Chief Mom Officer and what's next? What can we look forward to in 2025?
Yeah. So check us out at chiefmamaofficer.com. Also on LinkedIn, and Instagram is chief.mama.officer, and the mama is MAMA. And so what's next is that we are growing and expanding our community day by day, right? I want to continue to support executive moms with young kids and moms to be, and to be able to, help them in this critical time of them raising a kid or kids, and the business, and being able to find more calm and presence and thriving in that experience. So hit me up if you're interested, or if you know of a Chief Mama Officer, and excited to continue to grow this community.
I'm so excited, and I am a very small part of the community, so I'm excited to meet anybody else who joins as well. Um, Thank you so much for being here with us, Jennie. This has been really powerful, and I hope that you and everybody listening has a wonderful end of the year.
Yes. Happy holidays, y'all. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Happy
Great to
holidays.
connect.